Welcome, everybody, to Fancounters. My name is Nick.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And this week, we have no guest.
Well, we are the guests.
We are, because, and this was done on purpose. We wanted to give the listeners a chance to find out, like, who we are, where we've come from, and you know what? We've got some pretty decent fan counters ourselves.
We do.
Coming to you from nowhere near the entertainment capital of the world, this is Fancounters, the podcast.
You're amazing. You need to come to Hollywood. I'm going to make you famous.
There was this mob of people, and they're screaming my name.
Crazy fans.
Stop following me. Don't come around my house. If you do, the cops are going to be at yours.
I just had a fan get a tattoo of my signature on their arm.
Are you kidding me?
I continually will get stopped.
You were on Blue Bloods, weren't you?
Can I take a picture? We're gonna. Oh my God!
I definitely declined signing body parts.
Oh, I don't want to go there.
I'm the only one that's ever been on Sam Jackson and lived to tell about it.
That's why we call it Fancounters.
I don't think you're gonna last on the air very long.
Let's talk about how we met.
Okay.
Let's just get right into it.
Let's
Let's not waste any time.
Let's just get right there.
Yeah, okay.
So I am a promotions director at a country music radio station in Wisconsin at the time. And you come on as an intern, I believe. Were you an intern or were you hired to do something else?
I was hired to run the board for like live broadcasts. When people would go out to like a gas station and be like, yeah, come on down and sign up.
Okay.
I would put them on the air and take them off the air, and I was not allowed to say anything.
Fantastic. And over time, you kind of migrated into my department, and I discovered that you and I worked very well together and that you became an outstanding right-hand man, and that together you and I did a lot of great things. And then when I retired from radio, I passed the torch on to you.
Yeah. So I'm proud to say you were my boss at one time.
Yes.
And now I feel like I'm kind of your boss.
I think you might be. I'm going to want to raise.
Oh, man. We will talk. We'll take that off the air. Okay. So we, as working in promotions together, did a lot of concerts. This was a country radio station, so some of the stories you're going to hear today are about those country artists from the 90s, early 2000s. Mm-hmm. And hopefully you will remember some of these names.
Not that old.
So I was going to ask you, we talked a little bit before the show about your first backstage experience. Now, I'm never going to forget mine. Because when I started at the radio station, I was not a country music fan.
Okay.
In fact, I didn't know who any of these people were. So, the very first time I got a opportunity to do a backstage meet and greet was with Sawyer Brown.
Oh, they're a fun band.
Yeah. And that was at the Dodge County Fair. And, if you know anything about Mark Miller, who's the lead singer of Sawyer Brown, just YouTube him. His dance moves are...
I was going to say, he's a little bit goofy.
Yeah, the dance moves are amazing. He's very fun to watch. If you don't even like the music, he's entertaining.
He is. He's a nice man.
I think that's what got me into country music, to actually really start liking it and doing my own research so that someday when I was able to be on the air, I had a little bit more to say.
Yeah, I think the one that sticks out, I don't remember my very first one because it was probably a county fair, but the one that sticks out in my mind the most is Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks played the Bradley Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it was a wonderful experience. I was backstage with him by myself for over 30 minutes.
How did you accomplish that?
Well, I don't think you realize who I am. So we had a lovely time together. He and I talked about the kids. At the time, he was married to his wife, Sandy. We talked about Sandy. My father's business had sponsored our cup cozies that you put around a soda can. And so when Garth was signing them over my father's face, we had a long conversation about my dad and what the strawberry farm I grew up on and what Tennyson's Family Fun Farm was all about. And it was really a very nice experience. He's a very laid back, kind of genuine guy. And it left an impression on me that really lasted the lifetime, that I think he really knew how to treat his fans. I think he still does. When you watch him in concert, it looks like he's actually trying to talk just to you. Mm-hmm. And I think he does that better than almost anybody else in the business.
He is. true performer, and I think you're right. Like, I did go to Las Vegas to see Garth's solo show where it was just him and a guitar. And he connected with that audience in a way that, like you said, you did feel like he was playing just for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the way that, you know, he would look at every section of that theater. You know,
Yes.
so at one point you felt like he was staring right at you. Now, of course, the lights are bright and he can't see a thing for real. But,
Right, but you still get that feeling.
yeah.
Yeah, he's
I think
very,
that's
very
important.
good at that.
And I think that some music artists today forget that.
Yeah.
There are some concerts that I've been to where they will just be doing their own thing the whole time.
Yeah.
And I don't feel
And
like...
you're just along for the ride.
Kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh. I was just recently at a concert like that.
Who was it?
We won't be sharing that.
Oh, no?
No.
Okay.
It's not nice.
Okay. Well, and that's the thing. This show, Fan Counters, is not only for celebrities to talk about their encounters with their fans, but it's also every time we talk to somebody, it's a fan counter because we're having the opportunity to learn and share, you know, an experience between us and this guest.
So, Nick, tell all of our listeners a little bit about you and the girls and all the fun that happens here in this house.
Oh, this house is very loud when we're not filming this podcast. And luckily, school started. So my kids entered kindergarten. I have twin girls that are 5. So they're in kindergarten. And it's going really well because they were gone all day, which allows me to get a lot of things done around the house. And, of course, start the show and try and get guests for our show. But school's going well for them. I think they've adjusted to being gone for a full day, but they are so tired when they get home.
Oh, how nice.
The first week, they're like, can we just watch a show? I'm like, okay. We don't do a ton of TV here, but yes, you look like you would fall asleep to that show, so that's no problem. And then, so parenting has been, if anybody told me it was this hard, I may have thought twice. But I mean, it's like, you know, I would come and my brother has older kids and, you know, we lived away from home. So we come home for the holidays and it was just happy, fun time. I never saw.
Yeah, because it was Christmas.
Right. It's Christmas or it was summer or whatever. But, man, this is hard.
Well, and what you're not telling people is, and I just like to say it, that you're married to a rocket scientist.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife worked at NASA for a while when we were in Maryland and now develops the same type of technology for medical devices. So she's wicked smart.
She is wicked smart. And she was so smart, she's left you to the
It's probably best that way.
she's left you to the 2 girls.
Yeah, it's probably worked out for the better, I think. But you're a mom too, and you mentioned in the very first show that you're a stay-at-home mom. But you've had your school days free for quite some time.
I have a middle schooler and a 3rd grader, so a 6th grader and a 3rd grader. Both of my children are special needs, and so I retired 10 years ago so I could take care of them. They are both adopted, and my husband, who is an athletic trainer, is gone a good portion of the sports season. So we get him usually.
Which is like what, August to
to
August?
like July.
Oh.
Or to like June. We
Sure.
get the month of July with Daddy, and that's pretty much it. But the rest of the time we see him here and there. But yes, raising these kids was not really at all what I signed up for either. I had every intention. I have a master's degree in management. I had every intention of running some major corporation where I didn't really have to, you know, potty train someone.
That changed a little bit.
Yeah, that's not how my life worked out.
It's still rewarding. I definitely love it. Just totally, like, it's not what you expect.
Yeah, wasn't the
I don't
plan
think
I
anybody
had.
can prepare you
Yeah, right.
for how tricky it is.
I agree.
So kind of going back to some stories now, we'll hit you with the good stuff now. One of the very first things, like I told you, I wasn't on the air right away at the radio station. But our program director was like, he was an idol to me because he hosted the morning show. He was in charge of this radio station that got lots of cool things. And
he's just a really nice guy.
he is. And he took me under his wing. And one day I might have just stopped in. Maybe he scheduled me. I can't remember what the situation was, but he goes, Nick, I have to leave. John Barry's going to be calling in and I need you to ask him these questions. Well, John Barry at the time, after Kiss Me in the Car and a lot of his other big hits, was sort of a big deal.
Was
back
a
then.
rising star, yes.
Yeah. And so it made me very nervous. So I'm in the production booth and I'm just waiting for the call to come in. And I'm just like, oh my God. I'm trying to keep it together because like I didn't want to mess this up. You don't want to embarrass the radio station that you're working for. So the front desk lady comes in. She goes, John Barry's on line 3. And I was like, oh, great. I was like, hey, John. And he's like, hey, how's it going? And I was like, well, our morning show host had an emergency. So I'm going to do this interview. But he's going to voice over the questions. It won't be me. So I apologize for being nervous. And I think... Like he totally went with it because what's he gonna do? No thanks.
Yeah, I'll
Hang
call
up.
back and wait till he's available.
Right.
Actually, John Barry, I have a couple of times with John Barry, and he is just a delightful, delightful man. He was very kind and generous, and I could completely see him just going, oh, all right, whatever.
You're right.
We'll just go with that flow.
The best part was about 2 years later, he was doing a show here in Wisconsin where we taped this show. And my mom was the biggest John Barry fan, and that's really why I knew who he was. But 2 years later, I got to bring my mom and my stepdad backstage to meet John Barry, and I think that was like a moment she won't forget, but I know I won't forget it.
Isn't that cute?
And he was, because I had my radio station garb on, and I was like, this is my mom and stepdad, and he's like, he was so warm to them.
Yes.
Like, it was everything my mom had dreamed it up to be in her head.
Good.
It was quite the moment.
See, now she had a good fan encounter.
Definitely, yeah. Now, did you ever take your parents backstage to see somebody?
I took my father to see BR549, which was a band who kind of came and went.
For about 10 minutes, they had
Yeah,
a song.
Yes. And for some reason or another, my non-country music father globbed on to this particular band and was super excited to see them. And I want to say that we did it. It wasn't even at a concert. I have memories of it being at a radio store or music store of some sort, not radio store. But the funny thing is that my father will still to this day, it has been like 20 years, will say oh, where is that BR549? I'm like, oh, dude, they were come and gone in a minute.
Probably very separated by now.
Yes, I believe they would be, yes.
That's funny. I did have an opportunity. My dad's favorite group was the Statler Brothers.
Ooh.
And they were playing at the Riverside Theater in Milwaukee, and Sweethearts of the Rodeo was opening up for them.
Oh, very nice.
Okay. Now, the Statler Brothers didn't want anything to do with meet and greets. They were like, no, not happening. You are not having anyone meet this group. So I'd kind of backdoored it, and I thought, well, let's go to Sweethearts of the Rodeo. And Vince Gill's ex-wife was in that group.
Yes, she is half of the Sweethearts of the Rodeo.
Yeah, so we had done an interview with them on the radio prior, and that was funny because they're like, you cannot ask any questions about Vince Gill. You cannot bring up his name or she will hang up.
Just because they had been divorced and he had moved on.
It was a very bad situation for her. So anyway, I got backstage for Sweethearts of the Rodeo, and as we went upstairs in this room, but as we were coming down, because it was after the Sweethearts show, so we went up between shows to go meet Sweethearts of the Rodeo. My dad and I are walking down the stairs, and guess who's standing there?
No way.
Jimmy, Phil, Harold, and Don, the Statler Brothers. So I'm just like, Dad, and I would like you to meet the Statler Brothers. And the manager just glared at me, and he goes, guys, we got to go. And he ushered them away.
Did they even say hello?
Probably.
Okay. Yeah.
But that guy was so mad because that was the same guy I talked to on the phone who's like, nope, not happening. And then bam, there they were. Wrong place, right time.
Yes, I've had some of that experience in the backstage of the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah.
As they're shuffling them off and shuffling them on, and you're trying to interview them or talk with them. They're always like, no, keep moving. I'm like, no, I'm here. They're here. We're going to talk.
Right. And if you're pushy, nice pushy.
Right.
It tends to work out really well.
Well, and I think some of our celebrities would tell you that, it's those pushy ones that you remember the most. Because if I'm having a fan encounter.
That's true.
Those are the ones that stick out in your mind.
Yep. Taylor Swift was like that for those of you who don't know, Country Radio Seminar. is a big thing where all these country radio programmers from across the country come to Nashville for a week. And really, I mean, it's like all access to these artists. They want every piece of anybody who's there. And so about shuffling people off, I mean, Taylor Swift doesn't know how to say no because she kept signing and signing and signing and talking. And the guy's like, we got to go. We're going to be late. We're going to be late. And she's like, just a minute. Just
one more.
I mean, every single fan. Yeah. So I love when artists show that they're really about
their fans
connecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I agree.
There's one person that I had an encounter with twice that was not really about connecting. This woman, who's a country music icon, would play shows and schedule interviews for after the shows. However, I don't know what goes on in that bus after a show.
She's not notoriously known for being sane, I guess is the word we're going to go with.
But we would wait around. Literally, the show would end maybe at 11 o'clock. I think the latest I was on her bus was like 2 a.m. And we're talking about Tanya Tucker. Tanya Tucker was notorious for letting her radio station interviews just hang out. The people would have to hang out outside the bus until they came, till they were ready.
Yeah.
And I don't know what she was doing in there, but we would stand. And this is the thing. Like one night it was like rainy and drizzling, and there was really no place to go.
Right.
And you definitely didn't want to be away from the bus because when they came to get you, if you weren't there,
you were done.
I'm sure they're pulling out.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an experience. But she was always very, very nice. In fact, I would roll tape as soon as I entered the bus, and she'd be like singing her songs, and so I get this candid, Tanya singing these songs, and that was really cool. But I just thought, these people are never coming to get me.
Well, as we have spoken before, my encounter with Tanya was in Nashville. And we were, I don't know if we were at the Bluebird or where we were, but we were somewhere down there watching showcases where record labels get to kind of parade their veterans and then their new product out. And Tanya at the time was on Capitol Records. And I think she was, let's go with overserved that evening because
I think I know where this is going.
Halfway through the evening, she flashed the entire crowd. And I was shocked to find by the
flash bra flashed.
Yeah, no bra.
Oh,
just lifted her shirt up and showed everyone her stuff.
How about that?
And this was probably, I'm going to make it up and tell you, this was a 10 o'clock show or an 11 o'clock show at night. And by the next morning, when I woke up, all over town were T-shirts that said "Capitol may have her hits, but the Bluebird has her."
Fill in the
You
blank.
can fill in the blank. Yes.
Oh,
but
man.
I couldn't believe how fast they got those T-shirts out, man. I was just like, somebody spent all night long making those.
Wow.
Yep.
She played at a fair, and you know how the artists wear those monitors in their ears? So even though you're in the front row and you're screaming as loud as they can't hear you.
Right.
They cannot hear you. They didn't have her mic up high enough. You couldn't hear anything she was singing.
Oh,
and people are yelling, "Hey, we can't hear you." And she's just singing away. She has no idea. So, another one of those moments.
Yes, I'm actually also fond of my encounters with both Tim McGraw and Faith Hill.
Ooh, do tell.
Yes. Tim and Faith played a concert at the Bradley Station, at the Bradley Center. They had not been married yet, or if they were just dating at the time. But Tim and Faith had just finished their concert and were backstage with the radio station people and the fan meet and greets. And Tim was just such a sweetheart of a guy. And Faith was a little bit further down the wall, and then I made it down to her. Just sweet as pie, and she doesn't talk very often, but if she's tired enough, you can hear a twang in when she speaks.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just absolutely delightful. And I think both of them are really as down to earth as they appeared to be. And I think that they were very, very nice and gracious. And then I saw Tim a second time, and really same story, second verse. Very, very nice, very polite, accommodating to have his picture taken with everybody who was standing there. And again, these people have just put on a hour and a half or 2 hour long concert, and now I'm going to stand there and smile for the next hour and a half. And so bless their hearts for doing it the whole time.
My Faith Hill encounter was I had been canceled on a meet and greet once before, and so we were at one of these big festivals, where they bring in, a weekend's worth of entertainment. And she was very pregnant at the time.
Oh, no.
Totally not feeling well. But so she canceled her meet and greet for a second time. So he came out to announce that the meet and greet was going to be canceled. And I was like, oh, this cannot happen a second time. So I was like, can I talk to you for a second? And I said, look, this happened to me once before. I've never met Faith Hill. It would just be really awesome. Can you squeeze me in? And he's like, well, let me see what I can do. So he goes on the bus and he comes back down and he goes, all right, Faith is going to come out for 1 minute. So you'll have 1 minute to take a picture, and I will be taking the picture because it has to be taken from the bust up.
Okay.
And that's the picture I have of me and Faith because she didn't want to be photographed at a meet and greet with a baby belly, I guess.
With a baby,
I don't
sure.
know. Maybe she was uncomfortable that day.
I don't know.
But, it's totally sweet. Like, you could probably tell she didn't want to cancel it, but maybe she was not feeling well
yeah.
or whatever. So, yeah, Faith Hill has a good place in my heart, too.
Yeah, they're sweet people.
Another nice guy that we have had multiple encounters with when we were working in radio was a guy by the name of Brian White.
We have, what a sweetheart.
Yeah, just a good old Southern boy, right?
Yes.
He let me stay on his bus after his show one time, and he and his other guitarist just jammed, like literally 40 minutes. It was raining outside. He goes, you don't want to go back out there. He goes, just hang with us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like totally down to earth, and he had just played a whole show. And then that's what he wanted to do to wind down, was to go in his bus and just play some more music.
Yeah, just to kind of do it, though, on his terms.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
So that was kind of cool.
I have that great memory with Barbara Mandrell.
Oh.
Barbara Mandrell's husband, never leaves her side. And I was sent to go wait on the bus. And so he and I kind of hung out for like a half an hour until Barbara showed up. And then she sat down and we did an interview, and she was just... kind and sweet as pie, but just she's tiny. Oh my gosh, she's tiny. I'm only 5'2", and I think she's smaller than I am.
And how those voices come out of those tiny bodies.
Oh, and skinny,
amazing.
that tiny little thing.
Speaking of tiny little things, back in the late 90s, there was a young lady that came on the scene. Her name was LeAnn Rimes.
She was a tiny little thing back
then.
She was what, 12?
12, yeah, but that was when she first came on, and I think that was like 90. Oh, now you're testing my age here, but I don't remember exactly what year that was. But I know that she was probably 16 or 17 when my incident happened with her. LeAnn Rimes was sitting in it was at the Hodag Country Music Festival. So they don't have the best furniture in their trailers up there, because I think the trailers just sit around all year long.
Right.
So it was this kind of crappy recliner thing that didn't really recline anymore.
Okay.
So she was sitting up in the chair to get you'd sit next to her, you kneel down next to her. So I put my arm around behind her, but maybe it was one of those fake arm behinds where you don't actually touch them, but
right.
because she's 15, 16, I don't know how old she was at the time. So anyway, after the picture, she sits back in the chair.
And your arm is still there?
It's pinned.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, what am I going to do? And this is all split second thinking, right? So what do? You move your arm down to pull it back up.
Nothing good can come from this.
It didn't. I did feel a slight crack of the butt.
Oh, no.
And very uncomfortable. And she looked at me, and I was like, totally did not mean for that to happen. And before she could say a word, I was out of there.
Oh my gosh.
I was so embarrassed.
Oh, poor thing for both of you.
Yeah, because you never want one of those moments to be the moment that ends your backstage access.
Right, the impression you've left on them, and now you're done.
Yeah, you are done. Because at the same time, and this story just pops in my head, where we had. Something happened where we thought we had more backstage access for LeAnn Rimes than we did as far as how many passes they gave us.
Okay.
And so I want to say that there were listeners or something, and we had 2. And I think we had 10 people show up to go backstage. But what I do remember is how accommodating they were. This was at a different performance. This was not at the butt crack incident. But they were very gracious in letting the other 8 people come back. So, again, that was... one of those things where you feel a little uncomfortable.
Yes.
And then uncomfortable in a different way. And you were at this one with me, I believe, with Clint Black,
Yes.
another big country music guy. They didn't let him talk during his meet and greet.
Right, because I believe the meet and greet was before the show.
Right?
And they were saving his voice
Come on.
for the performance. And I have met him in another time than this, and he is a delightful, delightful man. But he was not allowed to speak prior to the show as they were saving his voice.
So he's walking around the room, literally like shaking people's hands, smiling with this like
Weird smirk.
non-tooth
Yeah.
smirk on his face, nodding.
Yeah.
Like it was the most bizarre experience I've ever had.
Right, because it's very strange when no one actually responds to when you're talking.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when he was just walking around kind of smirking at you, shaking
Clint, I
your
love your
hand.
music. Nod, nod, nod. It's like, okay.
How was Lisa? Nod, nod, nod.
It was so bizarre. That one, and see, those are like stories that once you have that kind of weird experience, you don't forget it.
I also have one that is not at all country music based. In the early 90s, I lived in London and worked at an ad agency, but I happened to live 4 blocks away from Kensington Palace.
Wow.
And it was a wonderful time in my life. But the beauty of it was that Prince William went to preschool about a half a block from my flat. And so as I would walk to work every morning on my way to the tube, I would see Princess Diana dropping Wills off at school. I, of course, am loud enough that I would yell, "Good morning,"
Did you
and
really?
wave. Oh, of course I did.
Did she wave back?
Sometimes, yes.
Wow.
Very improper in England, but you could tell who the Americans were because we're the ones yelling and waving, and all of the Brits are quietly walking by and pretending they don't see anything. But it was a fantastic experience to get to see. And I saw him more than once because we ended up about the same time every morning. It was,
So hugs and kisses and all that stuff as she
she
said
did.
goodbye.
She would actually get out. The Secret Service or whatever they're called there, the MI6, was always between her and the road. But she would get out. She would walk him to the door. She would give him a hug and a kiss goodbye, and he'd turn and wave and off to preschool he would go, and they must have obviously picked up while I was at the office because I never saw the pickup, but I got quite a bit of drop off.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and just truly at the time, that was the height of her popularity.
What year was that about?
That would have been 1990.
Okay, so
Yeah.
6 years before
Yeah,
she passed.
right. And so yeah, it was just a wonderful memory of seeing her in the mornings. Not every morning, but most.
We're dating ourselves a little bit here.
Yeah, well, we are old.
Oh, I don't like to think about that. Something I did when I was 17 and working at the radio station, because I was quite young when I started there, was they actually let me cover the Milwaukee Brewers,
Yes.
which was like super cool to be able to have media access as a teenager in high school. So I do have a couple instances of, you don't always do smart things when you're young. You do make a lot of mistakes. One of those was the time that I decided that I would invite a girl with me to the baseball game. And we both had press passes, and we sat in the press box. We must have stood out as 2 teenagers in the press box because we were approached quite early on in the game. "Are you working?" they said. Yeah. And they asked me to leave. So I got kicked out of the press box there. Phil Garner always used to call me that kid. "Oh, that kid's here tonight." Because I couldn't go to every game,
Right.
But I would go as much as I could. And so that was kind of cool that he would recognize the youngest person in the room
Yes.
during those times. And, that would never happen today. You would, I mean, they would never let a kid like that cover a baseball team.
No.
And have locker room access and all this stuff. I just cannot see that ever happening. Chuck Knobloch played for the Minnesota Twins. He was kind of a big deal in his time. So again, I was 17, offered me chewing tobacco. "Here, you want some chew?" And I was like, I'm good. Never had any of that in my life at that point before. So definitely not. But I'm no stranger to getting kicked out of things either. A guest that I hope to have in the future is a AD in LA on lots of TV shows, and her resume is like a mile long, literally, on IMDb. So hopefully she's working on details about appearing for us. So anyway, she was working on the set of a Fox pilot. It was called Most Likely to Succeed. They weren't, because the show wasn't picked up.
I was going to say, not so much.
Caitlin Doubleday was in it. She starred on Nashville and Empire. But anyway, we were invited on set by Vicky, our friend, and her dad came along because we were on the trip to LA with him. He helped on one of the movies that I made. And so we were just watching. Now, these pilots they cost millions of dollars, and they don't want anything out there. They don't want pictures, video. They don't want anything leaked, because they have poured all their money into the show, and they want to launch it, and they want it to be huge, and they don't want any pre-buzz about it until they want to control all the press.
Sure.
So, Vicky's dad, Lenny, who's still a wonderful friend of mine. Lenny, I'm sorry I'm telling this story. He had his iPhone out, and he's snap, 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 snap. He's getting better pictures than the director of photography was, literally. Well, we caused enough attention to ourselves, and we were politely asked to step outside.
You were kicked off the set.
Right. We were kicked off the set of the show, and they watched us physically delete all of our images. And not just delete to the deleted folder. They're like, and now they step by step, go to the deleted folder, click those again, delete all. Like, it was a massive
Wow.
deal. The only thing that we had felt really bad about was the fact that Vicky, who was working on the show, we didn't want her to
Get in trouble?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the last thing you want when she's doing you a favor.
Sure.
So it all went fine. She, I don't know exactly what that conversation was like, but we learned what not to do.
Yes.
So talking a little bit about movies, I started off obviously in radio and felt like there was something else in the entertainment industry. I've always kind of progressed. And so I started doing some short films and learned how to really do those well, and thought, well, okay, it's time for me to do a feature. So I had an idea to do a feature about what it's really like to be a child star. So the movie ended up being called Diary of an Ex-Child Star. And I got to work with a young lady named Tiffany Alvord. And if you look her up on YouTube, she's a huge deal. Like, her videos will get 1 million hits in a day.
Wow.
Something like that. So I contacted her when she was 15 and just starting to get the following, because that was the trend that we had identified at the time. Go after these YouTube people who can help you promote your movie. Okay. So we shot, ended up doing, I set her up to record some songs. She had never actually recorded any of her music professionally before.
Okay.
So I set her up with a music producer that we had met that was doing some other songs for us. And so she went in and recorded these songs. And I thought, well, it would be great promotion for the movie. Let's go out to LA and let's shoot a music video with her. So we did. We shot the first part of the video in a recording studio. Like, she's recording the song, with the headphones and the whole bit. And I thought, oh, that would be a good first part to the song. And the problem is we traveled from Maryland to LA, and we couldn't bring everything with us. I was already toting 3 or 4 cameras with me. So we didn't have lights or anything like that. And these music recording studios are quite dark.
They are, yes.
Yeah. Well, so the footage turned out as good as it could because it was dark. And her parents did not like the footage at all.
Okay.
And we had also filmed in the park the next day. And so they only allowed me to use the park footage. Well, we had only so much of that.
Right.
So it was really hard to,
put the whole song together?
Yeah, to only that. The other problem was, unbeknownst to me, before we released this music video, Tiffany had traveled to New York to work with a guy named Kurt Schneider, who is also a big deal on YouTube. And they recorded this Taylor Swift cover where she is singing a trio of parts, and she's in the video on the same screen 3 times. Like, she's superimposed on the screen, interacting with herself.
Okay.
Come on. That's brilliant. I didn't have that brilliant vision when I did my video. It was a quite simple video. So she released that one right before I released mine.
Oh, no.
It did not go well.
I was going to say, let me guess. No
People
one
on
cared about
YouTube-
yours.
Well, no, people on YouTube are mean.
Yes, they can be.
If you even make something slightly not great, they're all over you.
Yes.
So
Everyone's a critic.
that was my first encounter with like mean comments and stuff. Like it would ruin my day.
Oh.
You'd read these posts about this music video looks like crap. Why would you agree to do this? And da da da. This movie must suck. You know, they hadn't even seen the movie yet. And they're like, oh, this is gonna suck if this is what the video looks like. I'm like, I could kind of see that.
Maybe you should have shot it on Lenny's iPhone.
Lenny was there. He could have helped me. So what happened after that, I think there was enough like negative comments on the video. She ended up taking it down.
Aw.
And that was okay. She did 2 original songs for my movie. One of them was supposed to open up the film. So while we were out there doing the music video, we shot a lot of exteriors of LA landmarks.
Okay.
There's a problem with that. Without location releases, if the movie goes big, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So we had to nix that portion of the movie, which was the opening sequence. And so therefore the song was gone. So when the movie came out, I hadn't told them ahead of time because that's a really hard thing to talk about, that, hey, you just did all this work on this song. Yes, it's going to be on the soundtrack, and we might feature it somewhere else, but it's not the opening song anymore. Well, that didn't sit well with her parents either. So I have completely fallen out of grace with the Alvord family. I did actually invite Tiffany to be on the show, and her mom did not respond at all. So it just was one of those unfortunate things where I couldn't use the footage, and the song didn't, we didn't do an opening anymore. We went right into the movie.
I wonder why those landmarks aren't public domain.
Because it's private property.
Like the Hollywood sign?
Oh, definitely. Definitely the Hollywood sign. I think years ago there was this, in fact, right around the time we were filming this, I think there was a big lawsuit whether or not it could be used as public domain because people actually own the sign. So they own the rights to it. And you're supposed to apply with the city or something to get a special permission to film the sign. But we were doing like the Laugh Factory. We filmed lots of bars on Sunset Boulevard. The Standard, which is Leonardo DiCaprio owns that. So I think we could have gotten in, a lot of trouble had this gone anywhere. And it was starting to go places because not only did we film this movie, we wanted to do it as a television pilot. So I had a great guy on my side who is a marketing genius. His name's Tom Townsend. And he said, you need to approach some up-and-coming producers that would want to help you make this into a television show. And I thought, well, what better producers to do a former TV star's show than a former TV star themselves, a former child actor.
Sure.
So I started contacting a lot of actors and actresses who were on like 90s television who were starting to do some producing. And when I hit on Beverly Mitchell from Seventh Heaven.
Right.
And her manager, John McGalliard, and I started chatting, and he's like, well, send me the script. And it went back and forth, and it was very exciting because I thought, wow, this is really going to happen. So Beverly liked the idea, and Beverly Mitchell and I actually wrote a pilot together called Growing Up Hollywood. And it obviously didn't, they pitched it to various networks and stuff, and it never got picked up.
Well, welcome to Hollywood.
Exactly.
Well, one of the things that we talked a little bit about professional sports, especially with the Brewers, and I know that you've had some really good experiences with them and your girls. We have a professional soccer team here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin called the Milwaukee Wave. And for those of you who don't know what indoor soccer looks like, it's quite exciting. It's a lot of music. It's a lot of fan participation. And it's can be a rather high scoring game, but these poor guys are running their little tushies off from end to end inside the arenas. And the Milwaukee Wave does it right. After every single game, the entire team goes out for 20 minutes of fan appreciation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Every game.
Every game that's home. That anytime they are home, they run into the locker room, maybe grab a Gatorade or ice if they're hurt or things like that, and then they're back out on the field for a 20-minute time where they sign autographs, take pictures, sign jerseys, things like that. They are 100% accessible, and it makes that particular fan experience quite nice because even if you've only just met them one time, you still feel like, hey, I have Ian Bennett's signature on my shirt, so therefore I'm going to root for Ian tonight.
There you go, yeah.
And it's a really quite spectacular experience to see, especially for the littler kids who do like soccer camps in the summer and things like that, and may have had one of them as their coaches. They really truly identify with that player and are so excited to stand in line to get their signature on something. And it's a really cool way that this particular professional sport allows its fans access to their players, and it really is quite neat.
It is awesome to see that. In fact, if you don't mind, I'm going to do a shout out to Ryan Madson of the Washington Nationals. Ryan Madson was playing the Brewers at Miller Park a few weeks back, and the Brewers were doing a neat event for their kids club where the kids got to parade around the field, not just the warning track from like left field to right field. They went from left field corner all the way around home plate into the right field corner. So
cool.
Past the dugouts and all that stuff. I don't know that he knew that this was happening. Obviously, when you walk out on the field and you're like, whoa, there's a parade going on,
right.
You figure it out quite quickly. But he did his stretching and stuff, and we could see him from around home plate in the left field corner where we were headed. And he had stopped to talk to the kids.
Oh, how fun.
It was awesome. So when we finally got up to him, I don't think my 5-year-olds know what an autograph is.
Sure.
But I was rushing to get their tickets out so that they'd have something for him to sign, which was really cool. And so I have pictures of my 5-year-olds handing him this ticket, and the smile on Ryan Madson's face could light up the world. He should be particularly called out to say that is what baseball is all about.
Well, and that's what a fan encounter should be.
Absolutely.
You want to walk away feeling like you were just made to feel like you're the most important person in the world for that moment in time. And your kids, whether they remember this or not, will look at those pictures and go, he cared enough about his fans to take the time to meet the two of us.
And he gets it.
Yeah, he does.
He connects. What I was going to say about that, too, is I didn't know which player it was at the time, because he had his jacket on and I couldn't see a number or anything.
Okay.
But I knew that moment was special. I knew I wanted to talk about it. So I said to him, look, this is going to be very embarrassing for me, but I don't know which player you are. But because of what you're doing, I want to know. And he goes, and he just stood up. No big deal. He's like, he didn't say that, but he says, oh, I'm Ryan Madson. I'm a pitcher for the Nationals. It's good to meet you. And he put out his hand and shook my hand.
Very nice.
He didn't think that was, he didn't laugh at me and be like,
right.
Because when a few kids before us, one of the kids says, who are you? And the guy goes, oh, I'm a pitcher for the other team.
Okay.
That's all he would say.
Sure.
And so that was, he didn't make me feel dumb at all. That was really cool.
That is nice. You had a good fan encounter.
That was a great fan encounter. And, it makes being a celebrity really easy when the people who handle you are also easy to work with. There can be handlers that are completely jerks to the fans of this celebrity that they are either escorting or working for.
Yes.
And one of the great experiences I had, I was doing my web series, Life on Our Own. You can find it on YouTube.
It was delightful.
It is. It's a family-friendly show. Anyway, I was doing Life on Our Own, and my young actress at the time who was starring in it was 10 years old, and she loved Sabrina Carpenter from Girl Meets World. Well, I was heading to L.A., and I was going to a Girl Meets World taping. And since she liked her so much, I reached out to her manager, and I said, look, I'm doing this web series. I know I'm a nobody, but it would mean a lot since I'm going to be at the taping. Can somebody pass through an autograph photo that I can bring back to this 10-year-old who idolizes Sabrina Carpenter? And the manager got back to me instantly. And she's like, that is no problem. We'd be happy to help you with that. And I thought, great. We're standing in line to get into the taping because we didn't have any, we had to stand with everybody else. And we arrived 3 hours before the show, and we were very far back.
Okay.
The line stretches around the block for the show, and they definitely give out more tickets than they have space because they want to make sure they have a full audience.
Sure.
So they start letting people in, And we are maybe 60 people from the front of the line.
Wow.
And it became very evident to me that we were not getting in.
Okay.
And I thought, how am I going to get this picture? So I emailed my Sabrina's manager back, and I'm like, hey, look, I'm having trouble getting into the taping to get the picture. And she goes, all right, sit tight. I will call Sabrina's mom, and she'll bring it out to you. I'm like, oh, all right, I'm not getting in the taping, but at least I'll get the picture.
Sure.
So after some back and forth, Sabrina's mom comes out, and I go out of line to go meet her. And she's like, here's the photo, da-da-da. I'm really happy that we could do this for you. And I said, I know this is really weird. I said, but I'm here with my dad. Is there any way you could get us in? I said, it looks like we're not going to make it. And she goes, hold on. And she like walks back inside. I'm like, this lady's not coming back. Sure enough, she did. And she had 2 passes. Not only did she let us into the taping, she put us in what's called Video Village, which is like, you know, the studio audience is in these like rows of chairs.
Sure.
So she walked us behind that area into the area. It's called Video Village, and they have monitors of all the camera angles that they're taping. So the cast's family sit there, producers sit there, maybe sponsors, that kind of thing. So we got to sit in Video Village where all the cast was coming in and mingling with all the people that were there and experience this taping of Girl Meets World.
Yes,
I've
seen the pictures. They're quite spectacular.
Yeah. So after the show, I did, get to meet and thank Sabrina in person and Rowan Blanchard, who plays the Riley on the show. And, of course, having grown up with Boy Meets World, that was an awesome experience because guess who I got to meet?
Oh,
Ben Savage. What a nice guy.
Corey and Topanga.
Right.
What a good story.
Unfortunately, Topanga only had lines at the beginning of the episode, so she left. She was not there for the end of the
Okay.
show. But what an experience. And that's what I mean about the handlers. They were so nice, from the mom to the manager. Even the mom after the taping stood and chatted with me about, what it's like for them to be out in LA and how Sabrina's career is blossoming and her music and all this stuff. So props to her for having really good people on her team.
Yeah. As you and I have talked before, now again, we're dating ourselves because this would have been the 90s, but Neal McCoy had one of the best handlers on the planet in country music by the name of Les Martinez.
I was going to say, they're good when you and I both
remember
their
the name 20 years later.
Right.
That it was really just quite a spectacular experience to be able to. Les was very helpful, very willing to give access to Neal, and Neal McCoy was one of the sweetest men. A younger dad at the time. He had young kids when he was out touring, and so I'm sure that was a hard experience for him, but he got it, and he spent time with his fans, and his team was really quite good at making sure that you got all the access that you needed to him. It was really nice. It was a nice experience.
But you liked him for another reason.
Yeah, he smells really good. I don't know what cologne he wore, but every time you'd get close to Les Martinez, I'd be like, oh my gosh, you smell so nice. And I can still smell it in my head.
Looking back at your experiences, do you have any missed opportunities where you're like, oh, if I would have just asked him this question, or if I would have only done this one thing? Like, do you have any of that?
I think one of the things that you regret, and I don't know that you know this at the time, when you're doing mostly country radio, and especially when you're talking about summers in Wisconsin, and we're doing a lot of fairs and festivals and things like that, and you never really know who's going to make it and who's going to be the one-hit wonders.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it would have been nice to have kind of had the crystal ball on that, because some of the people who you kind of dismissed thinking, well, you're going to be a one-hit wonder, turned out to be these great long careers. And some of them that you kind of were like, well, I'm going to spend much more time with you because you really seem to be the rising star at the moment.
Right.
Turned out to be one-hit wonders who have faded and no one knows their names. So I guess that would have been my one regret if we'd kind of had a better plan on who they were. But, knowing what I know about what their lives on the road look like and what their summers look like, I mean, they're getting on a bus and waking up in a new city every day. And, they're still putting on a great show. They're still being very polite and kind to the fans that they're meeting in a brand new place. And, as you and I talked, you get served like cafeteria style catering, and you never get a really good home cooked meal, and you're kind of just moving from place to place on a bus.
Right.
So kudos to any of them who give a good fan experience.
After dealing with all the traveling,
right,
the crappy food,
right,
the unknown of what you're even going to be
not
eating.
being home with your kids.
Right.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's everyone has this aspiration of becoming a star, but not really realizing what it all entails, and not just the singing part or the acting part, but what toll is it going to take on your life overall? And so anybody who still gives a good fan encounter, in my mind, is a good egg.
Another good egg that we ran into kind of by happenstance, because we were not the number one country music radio station in the Milwaukee area.
We were not. Number two.
We were always chasing the number one, and we never were going to get there. And they still won't. But that doesn't mean that we got bad, worse experiences. We actually got some better ones. So when one of the fairs had their acts, obviously the number one country radio station got to pick the act that they wanted to sponsor and host. Of course, they picked the country music person. So who did we get stuck with more than 1 year?
Oh, that's right. We got stuck with Weird Al Yankovic.
But I don't think it was stuck. The guy was awesome. He was good to his fans. He had good backstage access. And in fact, there was one time when and this is like missed opportunity, right? I was going to be able to introduce Weird Al at one of the fairs. I was so pumped. Mother Nature was not. It was pouring rain outside, and the concert was not going to go on. There was lightning, and it just wasn't safe. So what does Weird Al do? He can't perform, so he invites everyone to come backstage and meet him.
Everyone who had a ticket for his show?
Well, it was one of those fairs where it was a free concert.
Oh, my gosh.
But it was pouring rain, so there probably was only 100, 150 people that actually
took him up on the office?
Sitting,
yeah. Okay.
So I got to stay in the trailer the whole time because I was the all-access on-stage person, and I just watched his interactions with all these people, from somebody in a wheelchair who had a disability. He was like all over this person, taking pictures and just making sure that person had the best day of their life. The funny story about this, and I know we're hitting our time for our podcast this week, and I have one more huge topic to talk about that I want to end the show with. But my wife, she wasn't my wife at the time. We were just friends. She was meeting me at the fair to see me introduce Weird Al. So she was walking around with one of our mutual friends, and since the show got canceled, me and this guy friend of mine, we were backstage with Weird Al. And this was before cell phones. We didn't have cell phones. So she couldn't call me and be like, hey, where are you? So she's walking around in the pouring rain looking for us around the stage area. And now I married her, right? So she does not let me live that story down. She constantly brings up the fact that
you left her in the rain at a Weird Al Yankovic concert?
And that I was hanging out with him. Weird Al is a great guy. His shows are intense, and he still goes above and beyond for his fans. Elizabeth, before we close this show, we've got quite a unique story to tell. It's not something that many people get to experience in their lifetime. And it happened at Country Thunder USA that's held in Twin Lakes, Wisconsin. It was in the late 90s. And all I can remember is the day was going just fine. It was a bright, sunny day, and then it was like you could snap your fingers and the clouds started rolling in.
Yes, I remember the day. And it got very, very dark very, very quickly.
And very windy.
Yes.
And they did not pull I think they were setting up for an act.
Yes.
But there were a lot of stagehands on stage.
Yes.
And when the wind whipped up, those big, tall stages, they are really just held up by 4 metal
beams,
on each side with huge speakers hanging from them. There's got to be a lot of weight on there.
Well, the other thing is that the underneath of the stage is a very light metal structure of just kind of crisscrossing beams. So it's really not like a super, super heavy industrial thing.
If you've ever seen those videos on YouTube about kids playing in bounce houses during the wind that aren't staked to the ground and they like blow away with all the kids inside. Well, this was kind of the same thing. The wind kicked up and it hit the canopy of the stage that was not lowered.
Yep.
And the entire stage came down on top of the people working on it without any sort of warning. That thing was like down in a second.
Yes.
People were trapped underneath.
Yeah.
I do remember Alabama was supposed to play that night, so their bus was there. and pretty much everybody was trapped backstage with the buses and everything because the emergency vehicles had come in. Buses couldn't leave. Artists had to stay.
Right.
It was really unclear as to whether or not the show would go on. But obviously, if you were looking at the stage, you knew that it was not going to happen. But that probably was one of my scariest moments because the only thing we had, because this is like in the middle of nowhere field, right?
Right.
So
it's
the
a
only
cornfield of some sort or something.
we probably had the best structure though, because some guy was advertising his log cabins.
Right, and we had borrowed
Right.
or bartered out a pull behind structure that was quite solid.
Yeah. So I mean, at least we felt safe inside that, as safe as you could be. But that's a day that will hang in my memory for a very long time. Of course, I have video of the event, not of the actual stage falling, because we probably could have made a lot of money had we been filming at that time.
Yeah. But we didn't have the internet really then, so there wasn't a lot of YouTube videos up about that.
No,
sort of
but I
stuff.
could have sold it to the television news.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. We hope that you have enjoyed some of our Fancounter experiences, and if you have some of your own, we would love to hear them. You can email them to us at hello@fancounters.com, and I'm sure at some point we can dedicate an episode to telling other people's stories.
That would be great.
I think it'd be kind of funny.
If you like us on Facebook, you can leave a comment.
Yes, and you can find us on Facebook by just searching for Fancounters, or if you go to your browser and go to our website, fancounters.com, it takes you right to our Facebook page, because we don't have the money to build a website.
Because that is not our wheelhouse.
That's not my forte at all. But hopefully making a good podcast and telling good stories is something that you guys have been enjoying for the past few weeks. And we look forward to having you back next week.
Yes. We'll see you later.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.